We're live.
And welcome everybody to a very, very special thing. This is our very first live stream of our. Are we calling this a new podcast, or is this
It's
kind of
it's a rebranding. It's
a
the same podcast.
rebranding?
It's not. It's not.
Yeah, same thing but different. We are now observed chaos instead of carry out conversations.
Because you're observing us and we're chaotic.
Yes. Then basically this will turn into a bunch of chaos by the end of the show. No, it's very good to be able to do this. We've been talking about doing live streams and videos for a while, and we just never really got the chance to, and never really had the capability until now. Um, so I want to thank you guys, and thank to any of our viewers and stuff. Um, shoot, let's just get right into it because
Okay.
this is just going to be a lot of fun. Um, and it's kind of interesting because it does kind of go with what we want to talk about today. About being a little bit overconfident. Um, I know that I've all day long today I've been just super nervous about doing this because I don't do well with cameras. I don't do well with streaming stuff, but it's uh it's exciting to be able to try to get it going and try to do it. So, start off introductions for those who don't know us. I am John,
I'm Dave.
And I'm Noah.
and it is so cool to be able to have you guys and for you guys to see us now. And so, kind of getting right into the episode, for for the sake of it, being overconfident is typically a vice of mine that I kind of have. I tend to go in certain situations and just think that I can completely control it and completely, you know, do something great about it and completely bomb half the time. Um, I think that's just kind of a human nature type thing, but uh, kind of go around just a little bit and kind of bring up some things like what are some things that you guys have been a little bit overconfident about and just completely screwed it up.
So I got one.
All right.
Um, so when I was about 17, I was when I first started getting into theology, right? And I'm like, oh, I've read all these books. I can go do a debate. And I did my first theology debate against some guy. His name is David. And now me and him are actually we're still like acquaintances, and he's a nice guy and everything. But he absolutely smoked me. Like it wasn't even close. Like it's one of those things where you think you're ready, you do all this preparation, and then you realize you're going against someone who's just on another level and has done far more research and reading than you have.
Yep.
That was a really humbling experience. And after that, I took like a year and a half off, and I was like, I'm not touching this debate stuff until I do a lot more reading.
Yep.
And you know, it kind of piggybacks off like what John said earlier about being nervous about a live format. For my other channel, it's the thing of, well, I can re-record something 20 times and make sure I say something just perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
But when I do a live stream or when I do a debate or anything like that, if I slip one thing up, it's there. It's just there
Yeah.
forever, right? And so you have to be really precise in your speech, which is something that I'm not always, you know, the best at, right? So it definitely is one of those humbling experiences when you put yourself out there in a public format and you just get destroyed because you simply didn't prepare adequately and adequately. So it was definitely a humbling experience.
Mm-hmm.
And even when I do a debate or a discussion where I think I perform well, you still after the fact you're like, oh, I could have said this differently, or I could have worded this phrase a little differently, and it's definitely a humbling experience because it's there permanently now. So
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't think I don't think there's ever enough preparation. You know,
Mhm.
like I said, going into this being our first, live stream, you know, we've done checks, we've done tests, we've done, um, mock recordings and stuff like that to try to make sure that everything is nailed down, all the bugs are worked out, and as we're sitting here, 5 minutes left into the thing, Dave's going nuts about something that just kind of like, was not bothering him, but it was kind of like he was worried about something, and so it's like being able to fully prepare, especially when it comes to something like a debate or something like that, you can
Right.
prepare all day long and still not be able to, to do it properly.
Well, doing anything live is just nerve-wracking because literally anything can go wrong. That was my experience in theater most of the time. Like, it didn't matter how many times I rehearsed my light cues or my sound effects, something weird would always happen. A computer would slow down or whatever.
Yep. Yeah, I remember when I was working at my old job that I used to do, audio visual, and we had a group that came in, and it was a firefighters association, and they would always do this. It was an amazing display that they would do, during the show. Like, they would have dinner and stuff like that, and they had a table set out that it was just like reserved, always said reserved, and they would do like a have like lights on certain little points of it, and they would talk about it. Like, basically it was reserved for the fallen firefighters that have died, like, in the year or something like that. And then they would do a video, like a video stream, or not a stream, but like a montage of all of the different firefighters that have died. And we would test this thing. I mean, we would test it constantly. And I remember being there and getting ready to perform or to do the show, and I get it set up, and the guy does the announcement about the video and stuff like that. I go to hit play, nothing happens. And I mean, we've tested this video, at least 2 to 3 times during the day. And so yeah, literally nothing happened. And so, see, this is the great thing about doing live. We can hear everything he just said.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there he is.
There you are.
You could hear me? My headphones all the way at the desk.
Yeah, we could hear. We could kind of hear something about, like, what do you need?
Oh, okay. So I'll make sure I silence my mic next time.
Get out of my room, Mom.
It's my brother. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, even better. But yeah, like, I remember, like I said, we tested this video a couple different times, and yeah, it came time for it, and like the video would not play, and so they kind of like took a break for a second, like, we'll come back to the video, So I had to like run and get another laptop, grabbed another laptop, put it in, got it all set up, got ready to do the video again, tested it over the computer, everything was fine. Went to do it, like, put it on the screens, and it got about 3 clips in and just froze.
Oh.
And like, it wouldn't, like, we couldn't get this thing to work no matter what. And I mean, the client was royally peeved, and rightly so. But I mean, it was just kind of like, it kind of shows, like, you can prepare all day long for it, but you're always gonna have a hiccup.
Yeah, that reminds me of, well, my aunt's funeral. So, she lived through the 60s, and she played her guitar a little bit, and she and like an ex-boyfriend wrote this song, and they recorded it to a cassette tape. Well, we found the cassette tape, all these years later. So my parents asked me if I could digitize the cassette tape and play it during a photo slideshow at her memorial service. And I'm like, okay. So I did exactly that. I rewound the cassette tape, recorded it into my computer, and I think someone else put together the slideshow. Anyway, I go to play the song during the service, and you immediately hear the Windows error sound. Because because I was too used to using spacebar to hit play because that's the way it works on Macs, or at least that's the way it used to. I don't know. And it was Windows Media Player, so of course it didn't work right away, and I had to really quickly figure out what happened. But I got it. But still, like that was one of the most embarrassing things.
Oh yeah. And it always seems like it happens at the wrong time.
Yeah, always.
Like it never happens at a good time to mess up. It's like it's always at like, you know, the quiet part of the service where somebody farts, or in our case we're talking about suicide prevention, and somebody decides
farts,
to let
yeah.
one go. We're not going to mention who, but yeah, it's just those types of things are always hard. So you know I guess a question that I have for you guys is, how much time is enough time to prepare? I mean,
Well, I guess that would largely depend on what you're preparing for.
well, okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Noah.
Yeah. So like, if I'm, preparing for something like this, there's not on my end, you guys, Dave's handling most of the technical stuff. For this, there's not too much preparation. For something like a debate, I mean, it might be months, right? So months of preparation. But it does kind of vary. I think the main thing is overconfidence is really an issue of pride, right? So there's nothing wrong with looking at what you've been able to accomplish in the past and looking at the effort you've put in and being able to recognize how competent you are with a particular field or with a particular activity. The issue comes when you are overconfident in your abilities, and then it shows before failure. Because if you're talking yourself up as particularly skilled or competent in a particular action or a particular field, and then you fail, well, then the fall is a lot farther, right?
Right.
Now, if you're humble and you have a humble disposition, and then you fail, well, then people are more understanding, right? You don't expect someone, when it's their first time picking up a tool, for them to be an expert mechanic, right? Now, if you have someone who says, "Oh, I've been a mechanic 10 years, I know all this stuff," and then they can't do something basic, well, then there's judgment. There's more grounds for you to be judgmental or to think that they were dishonest with you. And that's really the issue, is overconfidence. It's really a form of lying, because you're overestimating your abilities to the point where you are disappointing those around you who are relying on you to be able to back up your own statements about yourself.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's interesting because you're talking about like as far as in a job or stuff like that. As a mechanic, there are a lot of things that I can do, and I can do them pretty well. There are a lot of things that I have no clue what in the world I'm doing.
Yes, but you're usually honest about that. Like, hey, I've never worked on this type of machine before. This is going to take me some time to figure out,
Right. And it's like I do attribute a lot of my my skill set to my dad. My dad has taught me pretty much everything that I know, as far as mechanic wise, and I mean even more so in life. Like my dad, you know, has he's been there for me through everything, and I mean he's taught me a lot as far as like when it comes to being a mechanic and stuff like that. Not so much as far as like the diesel side of it, because it's like even like with diesel stuff, it's something that I'm not quite familiar with, and I'm still learning. I mean, and it's interesting because we talk about like being overconfident, and it's like a lot of times I tend to be a little underconfident when it comes to some of the stuff that I do, and I'll try something out, and when it works, I'm like, holy crap, I fixed it, and I have no idea what I just did. I can't tell you how many times that I've done that, but at the same time, there have been instances where I've been like, yeah, I know what's going on with this, I know what this is, and then it turns out it's just something like super simple. In fact, we had a tractor uh last week, I think, week before last, that came in, and everything showed like it was supposed to be this big complex setup. I mean, it was going to be something like a major job and stuff like that. No, turned out to be a little wire that just broke, and I couldn't find it, and it kind of was like, it was a little bit humbling, because one of the other mechanics came over, and he just happened to pick something up and was like, hey, I don't think that wire's supposed to be like that. And sure enough, that was the issue. But you know, again, that kinda, like you said, it's almost like a form of lying when you're a bit overconfident about things, because you tend to um, lift yourself up a little bit more. I know, and I'm sorry, guys. I know I talk a lot during this whole thing, but you guys are used to it by now. For our
Yep.
viewers, yeah, this is what I do. Um, I remember one particular instance where, and I don't remember if I've said it on the show before or not, but I used to teach Sunday school. I used to teach at a church, and it was getting ready for a service, and a few of us were going to be singing, and we are going to be singing a song, a hymn, and then we were going to kind of branch off just a little bit, and each one of us had a verse that we were going to give that was kind of representative to the song that we were singing. And there were four of us, and the first one got up there, and she just nailed it. I mean, just she did her verse and did really well, and then the next one got up and she did hers, and the third one got up, and he had to read his, because he was just like, he was a little bit nervous about it, and he was reading. And in my mind, I'm thinking, it's like, okay, it's like, I know the exact verse, I know exactly what I'm gonna do. And it's like, I get up there and it's my turn to say it, and I've been rehearsing this whole thing in my mind all day long. I'm like, I've got this. Get up there to, it's my turn to do the verse, and just completely blank out. And I'm talking, I cannot even remember where the verse was. I can't remember half of what the verse said. I had to paraphrase it. And now the hardest part about it is immediately after the song, I had to get up and teach about the verse that I was just trying to quote. And it just did not go all that well. I mean, and it was just kind of I tended to put more trust in myself than I should have, basically. Which, like I said, it bombed.
Well, the other thing is, sometimes when we fail in the moment, it's not always overconfidence. Sometimes it's just angst or anxiety or nervousness, right, that takes over. And when you're presenting something in front of people, I mean, that's just going to happen sometimes, right? And that's something that you have to build confidence for over time. But there are people who are public speakers for years, and that's what they do for their job, and they still get nervous when they get up to speak, because it's a big ask. It's a really big thing to do, to present yourself in front of that many people. It's a vulnerable thing. And so I think nervousness is to be expected.
Right.
But the hope is that as you continue to present, you become more comfortable. But I don't think anyone ever becomes completely comfortable with that type of public speaking or that type of presenting. So I don't think that's always overconfidence as much as it is just the moment getting away from you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Mine was strictly overconfident, because I like I said, I remember, and I remember Ruthie. She was kind of our headmaster or not headmaster.
Headmaster.
She was
Wait,
kind
what
of
type
like
of church? What type of church was this? I've
um,
never heard that title before.
she was kind of like our well, I don't even know what to even call her. She was kind of like the ringleader of our group. You know, the four of us, we always hung out together, always always did stuff together, and she was kind of the one that always set it up. So she even asked me, "It's like, are you sure you don't want to write this down?" I'm like, "Nope, I got it. It's like it's right here, and I know exactly what's going on." And yeah, she even came to me after the church, and it was funny because after the service, she comes over and she slips me a note, and the piece of paper was the verse written down, and she was like, "For next time," and I was like, "All right, well." It's like, and it was. I mean, it's embarrassing when that happens, but I mean, it leads to some good stories sometimes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, but so another thing that I want to ask you guys, it's like kind of goes right along with it is Noah. You had even said it's like sometimes you don't think that anybody really gets to the point of being comfortable, but in reality, I mean, it's like I wonder how many quote unquote like professionals are at that point of not even overconfidence, but like to the point where they just get so used to it, where they are comfortable with what they're doing. Like exactly how long does that normally take? I mean, um, you know, in a professional standpoint, I know none of us are really professionals in what we do. Um,
Not even in our day jobs.
no, not at all. um, but it's like when it comes to that particular thing, like at what point do those nerves wear off, if they actually do? I mean, like you said, you don't think anybody ever will, but you know, is there a certain point in time where you can literally say it's like, okay, I've kind of reached as far as I can go in my skill set?
Yeah. Um, so I think like if it's something you're diligently working on, you're always going to be improving. And I don't think it's always arrogance to have confidence in your abilities, especially when it's something you've worked hard on. It's not always bad to be confident in your ability to perform something.
Mm-hmm.
The issue comes in where you ignore the weight behind the task you're performing, right? So let's say it's not public speaking. Let's say it's something as simple as fixing somebody's car. Well, yeah, you're really good at fixing cars, but problems can come up that you're not expecting. Um, and this is not just a car. This is someone's means of getting their wife to a hospital or someone's means of getting their children to school. So it's like we go through life performing these different tasks, and as we perform them, we build confidence. But we often ignore the weightiness of the tasks, that even the simple tasks we perform. And I think that can be a form of arrogance, is just being unaware of what it is you're doing and how it impacts other people. So I think that's a factor as well, is that we can be when as we get comfortable with something and as we increase in our ability to perform that particular task, we trivialize it.
Yeah, I can see that. Dave, what are your thoughts?
I don't have any.
Are you confident about that?
Yeah, I have ADHD, so I blank the second I'm put on the spot.
That's okay, man.
That's
No
really what
worries.
happens.
Hey, that's all right. That's yeah, I get
But
that.
but Dave, right there, he wasn't overconfident. He explained
That's very
explained
true.
what the why, and just kept rolling. So
Yep.
Just go with it.
yeah, no, but I think most people are. I think most people are subtle in their overconfidence.
Mm-hmm.
They don't like. They just show it by being passive about what they do and assuming they'll succeed. I think that a lot of the most overconfident people are also very lazy. So
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. I think we have our first guest. Hi. Hi. We have a cat.
Yes.
There's a
is
cat
the
on the
cat
stream.
is the cat our first guest?
She is our first guest.
Oh, she. Okay.
She is.
Okay.
Yes, she.
I don't want to
Sorry,
try
I
to
didn't
pick,
mean to misgender your cat.
I don't want to try to pick her up because I know she won't like it. But come on.
Her name is Dolly.
There we go. There we go. It's a pretty kitty.
She very confidently climbed up onto the arm of the couch there.
It's an arrogant cat. You should get rid of it.
Yes. Isn't that all cats though?
Cats are just straight up arrogant a-holes. To be
It's true.
honest with you.
It's true.
We can probably expect some form of this like every single time we go live.
That's okay.
She does that.
That's okay. She likes me now. It took her a while to get used to me.
Yep.
But
She's usually very skittish around people.
yeah. But yeah, like, I think of sometimes it's like when you get to that passive state of it's like you've done this for so long that you just kind of it becomes a routine. That's when mistakes are more likely to be made.
Oh, definitely.
Because like, and I pull this up. I don't watch professional sports. Like I don't watch professional sports at all. I pretty much I like watching college, sports and stuff like that. But it's like the reason why I don't like watching professional is because most of these guys are they've done it for so long and they know that it's like, okay, I'm going to get paid no matter how I perform. And they go out there and just very nonchalantly, play a game that, most kids are out in their backyard playing for, like they're playing for bragging rights basically. And these other guys, these quote unquote professionals, they're playing for a paycheck. Like that's literally all they're for. And I'm not gonna name names because you guys know who I talk about all the time that I don't like. But it's like I see clips of him and like something will happen and about halfway through a play he'll just give up. And he'll just kind of stand there and just kind of like he doesn't
whatever
care.
I'm getting paid.
Exactly, and it's like that to me again is not like an overconfident thing, but it's kind of like they know that people are there to watch them. They're there to pay to see these, see them perform, and basically their money's already in the bank, so they don't really care what happens at that point. After that. And so that I guess that's a question there too. Is like at what point do you prove at what point is it actually proving yourself, or at what point is it just like you basically just don't care? I know even like we've been talking about churches and stuff like that, and even some pastors kind of get to these points where they kind of get in a point in their ministry where it's like they've done it for so long they just don't care anymore.
Yeah.
And you could tell, day in and day out by their, what they say, what they do, how they perform. I don't say perform, but like how they preach and stuff like that. It's like you could tell that they've just kind of reached the point of they just don't care.
There's actually a very good Simpsons episode kind of about that where the local minister just kind of loses his way, loses his passion because this one particular member of the congregation just keeps bombarding him with basically pointless things. And he's just, and at some point he's telling the story and he's just like, finally I just stopped caring.
Yeah.
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 And it's like you lose your passion for things that way.
Yeah. I think that's why I don't like. Oh, go ahead, Noah.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I think often arrogance produces that apathetic disposition, right? It's like, oh, I've done this so many times. Like, yeah, it's just it just becomes something passive.
Yeah,
and that actually leads to failure, which should harm the pride of these people. But so often our failures, if we're arrogant enough, our failures don't even humble us, right?
Right.
And that's a really scary thought, is being able to go out, fail, and then not adjust. afterwards, which I think a lot of people do. And I think a lot of people start doing that young, and then they continue that their whole lives, and they live just a very sad existence of failure and repetition.
Yeah.
So
Well, especially now because everybody gets the participation trophy,
Yeah.
for just
Right.
showing up. You get a trophy, and it's like I remember like back when I was growing up, back when I was in school, we were a very small school, and if you had any interest in playing basketball at all, if like basically if you knew what a basketball was, you were on the basketball team. I mean, there was just nothing about that. But you fought for your starting position. You fought
Mhm.
for for playing time. I mean, that type of thing. And it's like nowadays, it's like they've got it so set up to where these kids they get on the team, and then it's just like they become instant superstars basically, and there's no punishment for them. There's no
Oh, yeah.
uh, repercussions of any actions or anything like that. It's just like, okay, it's like I'm on the team. That's all I care about, and then it's just like you said, they become apathetic, and
I'm important, so who cares?
exactly, and I think that's why I don't like professional stuff, like anything professional wise, because you reach that point of it's like, well, I've reached my goal. I've become the important status, and it's like, what are you gonna do about it? It's like you're not gonna get rid of me or anything like that. When I think it needs to go back to not just in professional sports, but in a job, in a job setting, in a church setting, sometimes even too, of like you perform like it's your very last day. You don't just you know go in with the same mentality of it's like I've done this 1,000 times. You treat every day like this could very well be your last day of doing your job.
Mm.
And it's like that's how you should want to be remembered, I think. But
Well, it what that requires though is that the person assumes they are succeeding just because they're the one doing it, rather than they're succeeding because they built their abilities over time.
Mm.
So they ignore all that hard work that they've done to lay this foundation of competency, and they get into their own head to where, even if it's subconscious, it's almost the thought of I'm able to succeed at this because it's me, not I'm able to
Oh,
succeed at
yeah.
this because I've worked hard.
yeah,
So then that's where the apathy comes in, because you assume success, which is a really good way to set yourself up for failure.
yeah,
Mhm.
So it's actually silly, not silly, but it's surprising that it's actually humility that leads to more hard work and actually accomplishing the task at hand, rather than arrogance, which will, I think, in most cases lead to apathy.
Right.
So
yeah,
if you want to succeed, be humble, right?
yeah. Of course. I'm humble enough to know that I shall never succeed. I don't know. I know
But
there's
that's not
something
what I'm
about
saying
that.
either.
Right.
I know there's something about that. Like it's like there's the humbleness about it, and then there's those that are like, oh, I'm so humble about this. It's like they become professionally humble. Basically, is what they become.
Mhm.
So let me ask you this one last question, and before we end up here. So we talk about overconfidence. We talk about how long it might take to prepare for something. At what point do you just stop? Like, at what point is it plausible for somebody that's just not quite getting it to just stop?
That's a good question, because some people don't know when to quit.
Right.
They're like, "Oh, I'll get it. I'll get it,"
Yeah.
and they never get it. Some people
After
just
how
aren't
many failures
capable.
do you just give up? Is that
Right.
kind of what
Yeah.
you're saying?
Yeah, basically. I mean, because you look at it, and you think of like how they were talking about, Thomas Edison. Um, what it took him 100 chances to make the light bulb,
Something
and it
like
was like,
that.
yeah, the one it was the one that worked, and it's like all of those failures, and you applaud them for that. You applaud people for that because out of all of those failures came a great success.
Hmm.
But I see people struggling to breathe sometimes during the day. And it's just kind of like, at what point do you just tell them, like, okay, you know what? It's just not working out for you.
Yeah, I think that's another level of humility that it takes to just admit defeat. Like, you know what, this isn't for me. I need to try something else.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people can't do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's harder to step away from that the more time you put into something,
Sunken cost
and
fallacy.
and especially when
It's a good choice.
you've had what is it? Especially when you've had some success,
Mhm.
right? So you have success at the beginning, you continue to kind of go on nonchalantly, then you have a string of losses, and you might think, oh, it's time to quit, but in your mind, you remember the previous success you had,
Mhm.
and you kind of ride that high maybe too long.
I think you just described a gambling addiction.
Exactly that.
Yeah.
But it also describes musicians,
Mm.
because how, like, and this is something, weird to think about, but you never know as a musician when you've made put out your biggest hit, right?
Mm. Mm-hmm.
And so musicians are constantly trying to put out new stuff. Like, I listen to a lot of bands who hit their stride in the early 2000s, right?
Mhm.
Because I'm really into like metalcore and emo music, right? So a lot of those early 2000s like punk bands or whatever had one or two big hits, one good album or whatever that was very successful, and then they put out stuff in 2018. Nobody's really listening to it.
Yep.
They're making enough money to get by, but it's like, at what point do you just say,
Enough's
I'm done?
enough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of bands who were big in the 70s and 80s, they struggle with that. Like the Rolling, or like all these like 70s and 80s metal bands were like in their 80s. They need to go to bed. Like, someone needs to tell them to go to bed. Like, we love you. We're happy you made some good tunes. Now go be with your grandchildren and stop
Yes.
touring.
Yes. And I think, okay, well, we'll save that one for another episode, because I do actually have, a theory on some of those things, like as far as like bringing back old bands and stuff like that. But we'll save that for another episode. But I think our main thought for today is, don't give up until it's time to give up.
Ah.
Um, because again, I mean, you got to look at it like there's 2 points of that, right? Where you could either end it on a high note, or you dig yourself so far down to where it's like you're forced to kind of stop. Um, and unfortunately, only you as an individual can be the one to decide that. When it's your time to quit. Either which way. I do want to say this really quick. As we mentioned at the beginning of the episode, this is dedicated to my dad. For those who watch this and who know what's going on, please keep him in your prayer. For those who don't, my dad he was diagnosed with cancer at the towards the end of the year of 23, and just here recently he went to the hospital for a surgery, and the surgery went fine, but there were some complications afterwards, and he's slowly recovering. He is, there's still a lot of complications that's going on, but he's strong. Like my mom said, he is stubborn to the core. So he's not letting it beat him. He keeps fighting, which is great. But for those who, if you pray, please mention my dad in prayer. Keep my family in your prayers, as this is kind of a hard situation, hard time for all of us. Especially it kind of sucks for me because I can't be down there. They all live in Arkansas. I'm up here in Michigan, so it's like I can't really be down there with them during this. But it's like I call them as much as I can and stuff like that. So again, please keep them in your prayer as much as possible. We will try to keep you updated as things progress, or as things change. We'll keep you guys updated with it. But yeah, thank you guys for allowing us to dedicate this to him, because he did say thank you very much, and he really appreciates the thoughts and the prayers.
Mm-hmm. No problem, man.
Of course, brother.
But I think that ends it for our very first episode of I still don't know if we're calling this season 3 or it's the season.
Yeah, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah.
I think this is season 1 of Observed Chaos.
That sounds good to me. Yeah, season 1, episode 1 of Observed Chaos.
That's how I labeled the stream anyway. So
that works.
We're going with it.
That works for me. It is now in the books. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you for all who watch and who listen to this. Scheduling times, we're doing every 2 Mondays.
Every 2 weeks.
Yeah, every 2 weeks.
Monday of every 2 weeks. And
Yes.
then we will be releasing on all the same podcast platforms Thursday morning.
Okay.
Thursday.
So that part kind of stays the same. We are cutting it down from, instead of going from every 3 weeks to every 2 weeks now. So yes, not this, this Monday, not the next Monday, but the following Monday. We'll keep you guys up to
Yes.
date as we go.
I still have to work on the website because it doesn't mention any of this.
Yes. Yeah. Websites are usually pretty good.
Yes.
We do still have Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Go check us out there. Hit the like buttons. Don't forget to subscribe to, this page. We can actually say that now that we're on
Yes.
YouTube.
I mean, we've been on YouTube, but
Well, just
it's the same YouTube channel. I just changed the name.
same bat channel.
Yes, same bat time, same bat channel.
Yes. Yeah, I always forget how that goes.
You guys are so old. This is not 1953. Okay, he's
that-
no longer Batman. Adam West is no longer Batman.
Adam West was one of the best.
Okay,
Batman,
let's not
though.
get into this. Like,
Yes.
Yeah, we're not getting
We'll-
into this.
That
we'll get into this another week.
that will be another episode on its own. Who's
Adam
better
West,
Batman?
really?
I like Adam West. We'll save that for another episode. Again, thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you all for who watches and who listens to us. Again, I'm John.
I'm Dave.
I'm Noah.
Have a great night, guys.